Hello, everyone. In the last module, we talked about lean principles. In this module, we're going to start talking about some of the tools that we can utilize to help us put some of those principles in practice. So some of the learning objectives, we're going to talk about Kanban, 5S, Kaizen, and A3, 8-step problem solving. Now, these certainly aren't all of the tools available to us, and we will cover others in different modules, but these are some of the principal ones. First one here is Kanban. So essentially Kanban is a visual element of a just-in-time system. So traditionally the system works on physical cards that indicate when a material is needed in a certain location. So the general flow of this is that employee will near consumption of material at their process. They'll fill out a Kanban card and they will put it in some location where material handler is able to retrieve that card. It's then the material handler's responsibility to retrieve that material from wherever its designated storage location is and bring that back to the employee, back to the location where the material was about to run out of. So the idea here is that as we are consuming material, we're bringing it back just in time. I remember at Toyota, it was pretty amazing. On the line, you might be running out of parts and you're looking at it and you're like, man, that's really close to running out. Almost every single time you turn around and there's the material handler right before you're about ready to run out, they're bringing more. And that's how the process should work. You shouldn't have a whole lot of it in one location. It should be brought to you as you need it. The next tool here is 5S, and to help us with this, we're going to watch a short video from our Lean Primer series on 5S, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. So let's watch that video.
How much time do you spend looking for your TV remote? How about your car keys? Now, imagine if when you went to work every day, everyone threw their keys in a pile, and at the end of the day, you had to sort through that pile to find your keys. That obviously wouldn't make sense. Yet, many of our work environments resemble this situation. The tools and equipment are never where we need them, when we need them, leading to waste in the form of waiting and excess motion. We can help resolve this issue with a process called 5S. Sort, sweep, set, standardize, sustain. In the first step, sort, we need to remove any items that do not belong in the area. Keep only what's actually needed. Sweep consists of thoroughly cleaning the area. Next, we need to set everything in a location that places it nearest its point of use. Standardize is the next step. Mark off and label locations and document the changes. Remember, if the designated locations aren't communicated to everyone, then they might as well not exist. Sustain is the last and hardest step to complete. This step requires complete buy-in from your team and routine audits to ensure sustainment and identify further opportunities to improve. By following these 5 steps, sort, sweep, set, standardize, and sustain, you can improve the efficiency within a workplace and reduce safety hazards.
So as the video mentioned, the first step in 5S is sort. So that means we want to remove all items from the workplace that aren't needed for current operations. We have a tendency, I believe, to hoard things. We used this once, we might need it again. Sometimes things are left there that weren't even supposed to be there, but no one knows what it was, so it just kind of stays. It finds a new home. And what we really want to do is we want to look and see, is this item necessary to the area? If it's not, we need to get it out. Is it old? Is it broken, etc.? Down at the bottom there, when in doubt, throw it out. That's what we really want to look for. The next step is to sweep. So after we've sorted the area out, we now want to clean the area. This is a great time to clean the area because we've probably removed a lot of stuff from it. So we're going to take a look at the area in general. We're going to clean it up. If you have some items that have value but they're not meant to be in that area, consider having a red tag holding area where you're going to put things into that location for a specific period of time, normally 30 days, and look and see, do we really need this? Maybe we do, maybe we don't, maybe we need it somewhere else, or maybe we don't need it in the company at all. And if that's the case, sell it, relocate it, throw it away, whatever it is. But right now, this is a perfect time to clean our area. Next step here is set. So we want to make sure that we are putting items into a location where anyone can find them and it makes sense. It doesn't make sense to have a tool located all the way across the work area if you use it all the time. If you use it all the time, let's find a location right where we want it. We want it somewhere where it makes sense, reduces motion. We don't want to be walking around. We want to have it where we need it, when we need it. We want to make sure that items are stored in order of use. So if we have 5 tools and we use this one specific tool more often, that one needs to be closer to the work location. If this last tool we only use once a week, but we do need it in the area, maybe it doesn't have to be right there at the workstation. Maybe it needs to be somewhere a little farther. I always hear, well, we don't have enough space. This is how you find out how much space you really need. You take a look at, what do I actually need? How often do I need it? Now let's design a system that keeps our tools where we need them, when we need them. If you don't use it very often, put it somewhere a little bit farther away. You're also going to want to start to looking at labeling items, right? So where does each item go? If I just decide, well, this is going to go here, but I don't let anybody know, I don't label that this is its location, chances are it's going to move. Ultimately, we want a place for everything and everything in its place. Next step here is to standardize. We want to create a consistent way of implementing the tasks that are performed on a daily basis. So the sort, set in order, shine, sweep, those are things we're going to do every day. So we want to make sure that we have written standardization of what this looks like. We want to do the right things the right way every time. We don't want to do it some of the time. We want to do it all of the time. And as we maintain this practice, it then becomes a habit. And now we're consistently doing the same thing every time. That's what we really want to get to as far as standardization. Document the procedures, document the schedule, and then make sure you communicate this. If we're not communicating this, it doesn't really do us any good. We want to make sure we have each step listed out, who's responsible for it, where does it need to go, what needs to happen, and then train our employees to that. And to help illustrate the importance of standardization, we're going to watch this next video, another part of our Lean Primer series on standardization.
Imagine that you eat at a restaurant multiple times, but every time you order a certain meal, it tastes different. Would you continue going to this restaurant? Many organizations allow a similar scenario to play out every day. Employees are given high-level instructions to build this widget or create that report, but there's no easy-to-follow roadmap to get from start to finish. If we followed 10 different employees who were given the same vague task, we would likely see 10 different paths to completion and 10 unique end products. How do we fix this? The answer is standard work. Standard work is a tool used to ensure consistency within processes. If used correctly, standard work provides a way for employees to perform tasks in the same way, no matter who performs them. This creates an environment where quality improves and customer value is elevated. Standard work should be created in cooperation with the employees who will be using it. It should contain these 4 key elements: method, the sequence steps of work; takt time, how often the work must be completed; cycle time, the total work time of all steps; and standard WIP, the minimal inventory necessary to maintain smooth workflow. Creating standard work for your current process sets the benchmark for improvement. Once the improvement is standardized, it then becomes the new benchmark for further improvement.
All right, we've gone through all the steps, we've standardized. Now it gets to the hard part. The last step is sustain. Sustain is by far the most difficult thing that I have seen in any organization. We need to instill the necessary discipline to make sure that this is absolutely ingrained in everyday work life. It's just part of the process. I remember a time at Toyota, we had some confusion among the group leader and the assistant manager. And for some reason, somebody thought that it had been communicated to them that we weren't supposed to 5S at the end of the shift. So at the end of every shift at Toyota, we would spend 5 to 10 minutes just making sure everything was put in order. If anything had gotten out of place, everything was put back, trash was swept up, everything was done right. And for whatever reason, something happened, and we were told at the end of the shift, don't 5S. When we're finished with the last engine, just clock out and go. And it was kind of funny to see because everybody had been so used to 5Sing every day and cleaning up the area, which is a key principle at Toyota that the frontline employees were utterly confused. We're like, hold on a minute. What do you mean we don't 5S? If we don't clean up, what are we going to come into tomorrow? It's going to be a mess. We listened. Everybody did what we were told to. Nobody 5S, but nobody really felt good about it. And then it was funny because then the next day, the assistant manager, came to the group leader and was like, hey, why didn't you guys clean up? It was a mess this morning. And ended up, it was just a communication error that had occurred. And the group leader ensured that the next day everybody 5S'd. But that's what we talk about as far as necessary discipline. We were so used to doing it that when we were told not to do it, there was almost a revolt because we didn't understand what was going on. That's the level that you need to get to make sure that your areas are maintained on a daily basis. Here's a 5S example for you. So these are two separate cabinets. Stuff had just been put in here. Nobody really knew what was in there. We didn't know if all of these parts worked or not. There was no order to it. No visual indicator of inventory or supply levels. It was a mess, to be honest, and nobody knew what it was. Afterwards, we went through, we decided with the team, we didn't do it arbitrarily, with the team, we decided what do we need in here? Okay, let's mark locations for it. And let's put labels down. Let's put how many, there were min maxes on those rolls down at the bottom. How many of these do we actually need? Essentially, we stenciled out where the tool locations went. And this team came back later and used 5S foam to help with this, but you don't have to. This honestly would have been just fine. You just have to have a location and you have to have a label for it. And the team, they absolutely loved this. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so easy. I spend so much time looking for these tools and now I know exactly where everything is. And if I don't have something, I know that too. And not only that, I know what I'm missing because the label's there and it tells me what I'm missing. The next tool here is Kaizen. So Kaizen has morphed into a couple of different meanings. Essentially, Kaizen is a Japanese philosophy, which means change for the better. It's taking something apart. It's determining, how can we make this better? You'll hear in some later modules about Kaizen events, which are typically 3 to 5 day long events where we get a group together and we really drill down into a process or an opportunity to see how we can make it better. At Toyota, we actually refer to Kaizen as just small changes. So to give an example, I was helping with a process one day and we were going through an engine change. So there was a new engine that we were starting to phase in. We were still making some of the old engines, however. At this specific process, you had two types of bolts that were used, one for the old engines and one for the new engines. The old engines had predominantly been the engines that were used more frequently. And so it made sense that the old bolts were stored right there. They were the closest ones to the process. Well, eventually we hit that point to where we were doing 70% new engines. And I asked the group leader, I was like, hey, we have gotten to the point to where these bolts are now being utilized more often than the older ones. So the employees have to turn around a little bit farther to get those old bolts. Not only that, they're doing it more frequently. I think it makes sense now to just swap the location of these two bolt bins. And the group lead was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. She called the group lead from first shift and they were like, yeah, that makes sense. Let's go ahead and do that. And so we quickly swapped them out. We moved them. That was a Kaizen. It was a very quick change, but that's what Kaizen meant at Toyota. It was, what are those small little things that we can do just to make things better? Another tool here that we have at our disposal is a Gemba walk or a waste walk. Essentially go and see. We want to go to the shop floor. We want to observe for ourselves what's the current state situation. We want to look for those eight wastes. We want to note all of these down so that we can look at what can we make better. This is a very powerful tool to be able to go out and look for downtime and then with your team look at, okay, these are all of the things that we saw. What is it that we can do to change some of these? Some of these are going to be, rapid improvements. If I've got a trash can here, but it makes sense to put it over there, let's move it. Okay, we don't have to have a committee meeting over that. Let's just do it. Those are just do it opportunities. This next tool here is one of my favorites. It's 8-step problem solving. 8-step problem solving is based off of the Deming circle or Deming cycle. It's the PDCA, so plan, do, check, act. We have a tendency to see a problem, come up with a solution, and implement that solution. but we don't really think everything through. We don't think through all of the steps. The 8-step problem solving methodology that we utilize is patterned heavily after Toyota, and what I utilized as a quality circle leader to help implement change. And it helps us methodically look at a process and go through and determine each step of the way that we're not missing anything, that we're keeping in mind all processes involved, everybody around us as well, and that we're really drilling down to the root cause and looking at what we can do to make this better. Here's our A3 format, and we have a module on this where we go into more detail about how this works, but essentially the A3 format split into 3 main sections, covers project management, the 8-step process itself, and team development. As part of that A3, we have 2 more tools here. So the first one here is a fishbone analysis. The goal of this is to determine the single largest contributing factor of an opportunity. We want to look at the 6 M's, which are measurement, material, method, environment or mother nature, manpower, and machine. And we want to brainstorm. We have this problem. We have this identified, defect. We want to look at what are all of the possible things that could be contributing to that. Are we measuring wrong? Did our material change? Is there a problem with our method? Is there issues with our machines? Let's look and identify all of those possible things, and then let's determine, okay, we think this is the point of occurrence. We think this is the most probable cause of our problem or our opportunity. And once we've done that, now we can jump into what's called a 5 why analysis. So essentially, we want to ask why 5 times thereabout to get to what is happening. And I'll give an example. When I first started learning about lean and some of these principles, I started utilizing a lot of these in my own home. So ultimately what had happened is I had yelled at my children. I'd lost my temper. So I asked, why I lost my temper. I lost my temper because my daughter had hit my son. And so I asked her, why did you hit your brother? And she told me I hit him because he was poking at me. So I asked my son, why were you poking at her? And he said, well, I wanted her attention. Why did you want her attention? And he says, well, we were playing a game earlier together and we stopped to eat. And now I want to go back and finish that game. And so ultimately, if I get down to the root cause, was my son wanted to spend time with my daughter, which was not what I was expecting. So because my son wanted to spend time with my daughter, therefore he picked at her, therefore she hit him, therefore I lost my temper, and we had this conversation. And essentially that's how a 5 why analysis works. The root cause might not always be something that you are expecting, but we need to keep asking this question, why, until we get to a root cause that is within our control. And that's it for this module, everybody. Thanks, and you have a great day.